So let's start by a quick introduction. Chris Carey is your company is CC Landscape Lighting Design. Is that correct, Chris?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And Chris has been with us since basically the beginning of the year, although I think we first started talking maybe last year.
Yeah.
And he's been involved in landscape lighting design for about 22 years. He's worked for Nightlight Inc. and Lightscape Inc. And he'll fill us in some more details on his background, but his background's also in theatrical lighting and has worked as a gaffer and part of the film industry and things like that. So we're thankful to have Chris on board with us. He's going to run us through this course. This is going to be a short class, which is called the design process. And it's how we function as landscape lighting designers, our role and the different components that we have to face, as well as what we're supposed to control and not control during the job. So I'll give it to you, Chris. You can run with it at this point, and then I'll click the slideshow for you as we move forward.
Okay. Um, like Mark said, I've been doing landscape lighting for 20 plus years. And before that, I lit film sets. And I started out as a gripper and electrician, which is basically the entry level position on the lighting end of things, and worked my way up until I was a gaffer. And did that until 9/11 happened. And at 9/11, I was doing a television show called What About Joe, a sitcom, the only sitcom that had ever been shot in Chicago. And 9/11 happened, and they used that as an excuse to end production on the show. And everything basically ended. There were no television commercials being made. There were no uh, TV movies being made. Nothing was being made. And so my wife looked at me and she said, "So what are you going to do?" And I got an invitation from a guy to, he would do a demo of landscape lighting at my house. And so I called him up and said, "Do you ever hire designers?" And he said, "Why?" And I said, "Well, I like commercials now." And I said, "I think I could probably light landscapes as well." And so we had an interview and I got the job, and I went from being the guy that didn't know anything to being his best sales guy. And I think part of that was because I could look at the whole scene, the front of the house, the back of the house, whatever they were looking at, and I could see the key areas to light. And because I knew that the light would draw you to those areas as long as you did it. And so that's the way I just looked at it, as I'm just lighting. This is the film set. This is the shot. This is what we're going to shoot. So this is what we're going to light. And that's the way I've always approached lighting. And so I don't know. That's really it. I mean, I guess we can start the program. Any questions?
No,
Nope.
kick her off here.
Sorry, I'm coming in a little late here.
Oh, no problem. Hi, Scott.
How you doing, Mark?
Good.
Hi, Scott.
Here we go. We're on
you guys
the
doing?
first slide for you, Chris, the design process with the 4 stages.
So this is the beginning of the design process. It's 4 stages: design development, the bidding, the implementation, and then the completion. Design development to me is, okay, somebody gave me a plan, a landscape plan, or a plat of survey and said they want lighting here. And that's where it sort of starts. I always looked at Google Earth, and I always looked at fall pictures or winter pictures, because then the tree canopy is gone. At least in Illinois, it is. And it gives you just a big, I don't know, overall look of the property. And you can see where the driveway is, and you can see how big the house is and stuff like that. And if it came from a landscape contractor that I had a relationship with, or landscape architect that I had a relationship with, then I could ask questions there of, you know, is the client here all the time, so on and so forth. Where do you think they're looking to do the lighting? Is it going to be in the front, or is it going to be in the back? and just so I'd get my mind in the right place. Then I try to go and look at the property if I could, um, before I was invited or before I had an appointment. If you can, sometimes you can't see it because it's too far away. But that's where the Google Earth is good. And if you have a landscape plan from the contractor, then you have a lot there as well.
Basically, it's an information gathering stage, that first part, correct?
Yeah.
Good. So let's go to here, stage one, and
This is where you're going to try to meet with the client, who they are, what they want, when do they want to meet, and why do they want lighting? Why do they want lighting? Because there should be a need, a want, a desire, a pain, something that the lighting is going to solve, that they think the lighting is going to solve. And you have to find out what that is. And you can do that by asking questions, pertinent questions. You know, is there a wedding happening here on the property? Is there, you know, an event that's coming up that we need to be prepared for? Those are typical reasons why somebody want to jump into lighting. But you have to find that questions out. Is the landscape going to change? And why is the landscape changing? You know, is there a pool going in? Is there a spa going in? You know, why is all of this happening? And then you want to perform your site analysis parameters. Are we looking at the backyard? Are we looking at the front yard? Are we looking at the whole property? Is it here? Is it down by the barn? What is it that you want to do? And then you want to go to the design intent. Take photographs, create a bubble plan. A bubble plan is sort of an area. This is the shot. This is the small shot from the big shot. And this is a smaller area that we're looking at. And which way are we looking at it from? And when we look at some of the drawings a little bit later, you'll be able to see that. You can tell where everybody is going to look because of the way the landscape is laid out and the way the property is laid out. And that's really what a bubble plan is this is an area that we know we're going to do some lighting, and this is another area that I know we're going to do some lighting. And then a lot of towns have a lot of different rules, regulations, zoning. You have to know what that is. And that you have to sort of work within that. A lot of people don't want dark skies. And so you can't really do a lot of uplighting if you have a dark sky community. A lot of it's going to be downlights or path lights or some other way of downlighting the property. But you need to find that out, whether that's there or not. And then you want to develop a conceptual plan, something that's going to get them excited about what we're doing.
Yep. Now, just so you guys know, if you recall, remember Chris Mitchell, he has his class that the DCCR class that he teaches that really digs in much deeper, which talks about these desires, these pains and fears. And he goes through this whole process up here in the beginning where the initial meeting, where you're talking to these customers and trying to understand what it is that, why did you get the call out? Why, you know, Chris is excellent with questioning customers and being able to gather information. So that's where this part is in the beginning here, this beginning stage. And then if we look at site analysis, which will be on our, I believe that's our next slide. Site analysis also takes in a lot of different things that whatever's happening on the job site, like with utilities and such. So we might as well just go on over. So if we look at this page here, and I'll let Chris pick back up, but basically you want to be able to identify all the key parts of the job site that are important. So like, where are your utilities located? What are the safety hazards? Where are hardscape elements? locating your trees, looking at views and vistas. You know, you want to gather all this information, access for parking, storage areas, restrooms, water, shelter. All these things are important, especially if you're dealing with larger projects and or if you're working with other team members. Let's say you're working with an electrician, a landscaper, the landscape architect, irrigation people. You know, you're going to have multiple trades potentially. You have to be able to understand the site and how things are flowing so that there's no problems and no conflicts.
And where do you fit in that flow? You
Yes,
know, are you going
absolutely.
in after the landscaping is in, but before the irrigation? No, you want to go after the irrigation because the irrigation guys are going to cut your wire.
Mhm.
We're kind of the last guys, but you also have to ask some of those people, hey, can you put a sleeve underneath the sidewalk because you're going underneath here to put irrigation over there anyway? You know, can you put in an empty sleeve for me to run my wire through? And as long as you treat everybody equally and so on and so forth, they'll gladly help you because they know that somewhere down the road you're going to help them.
Mhm.
Um, and it's nice to have that relationship because those are the people who are going to feed you more work. Um, and identifying all these things. I'm big about knowing what the trees and the plant material are. I like
Mhm.
to know what the trees are that we have. And, you know, and when I talked to the client, I said, well, I'm going to put a moonlight in your crimson maple, and we're going to put a dappled light down onto your sidewalk. That just makes it sound prettier. It's just, it's, I don't know. It's nice to know what the plants are, know what the trees are. That's
Absolutely.
way. Um, and evergreen trees, you know, I call them light vampires because they just you put light on them and they just suck it up. But it's nice to know where all these hardscape materials and places are and identifying all that and the parking and so on and so forth. I mean, the restrooms, water, shelter. Yeah, because you could get stuck during a thunderstorm out on there. And where are the guys going to go so that they don't get in harm's way?
Absolutely. And I think one final thing I'd like to say is that because I've had this happen before where let's say you get called in for a project that's outside of your area, maybe another state, maybe it's out of the country. How are you going to be able to maneuver and deal with these different elements if you don't have a good site analysis prepared where you question all these things in advance? That's the job of the designer. We should know what to expect so that we can direct our teams that are working with us. So here's a
Ah, this is awesome. This Mark put this in here and I looked at it, I printed it up. I think this is spectacular. I think everybody should grab this page, print it up, and use it whichever way you want, and change it forever whichever way you want. But I think a lot of almost everything I can think of is in here in terms of what you're looking at for that site analysis
yeah,
and a
what
place
I'll
for
do is
notes.
I'll send this form to everybody here if you're interested. The idea is again for trying to capture notes and if you look at the way this is broken down, so you have your site information, you know, who's the contact, what's the address, the emails. If you wanted to do mileage, you can do that on here. Team contact, like if you have an electrician, a plumber, whoever, you can list all those people so that now you have a little record for your files. Job site information, as you can see, you know, the size of the site, is there phasing on the job? I have a coding system that I set up originally, like RCIPO, and it's all listed down below, like residential, commercial, industrial, parks, or something different. The size of the project we also talked about phasing. Is it a single phase job where you're in and out, or is it going to be done over multiple phases? So all this information that you're gathering here can be used for your purposes as you're planning and moving forward. And then you can add more than I've got on here, but you can see like problem areas on the site, or is there any danger, lumber pile with nails, wild animals in the area. I mean, you could list whatever you wanted on here just for your own purposes. Where are the power sources located? How about crossings, whether it's utilities, access routes, whatever, conduits, if there's locations there. And then you can get up here in your design objectives towards what's the focal point based on a certain area. You could say, zone A, or number 1 would be this, and number 2 would be this, and then you can list all these things. Again, this is just an option for you to add more information so that you can put together a really good conceptual plan at the end.
I think it's really great, and I've never done anything like this, but it's got all the parts and pieces to it. And when I do a breakdown, I call it, of a project, I'll break it down into areas. They may not be zones, but they're areas of lighting. I think this is great because it has all of the other trades that are going to work on the job. You have names and contact information, and it's a great resource, I think.
Good. All right. Thank you.
Very nice. So bubble plans. I've never really drawn a bubble plan, but I've looked at the ones that Mark sent to me, and it's an area. You know that this area around the patio is an area that the client is interested in doing some lighting here. And what are the views of that patio from inside the house or from other places in the landscape? And which one or all of them are good, or which one is the best? Is there one that's better than any other? And it's just a way of picking areas, the pedestrian flow, the views, and putting them all into a visual thing that you can look at and go, okay, I understand that. I remember that area. I've been there. I remember this. And it's just a good way to look at the whole place and to treat each area or each bubble as almost a separate entity, but not.
Yeah. Yep. I think of bubble plans like when you first go out to a job site and you're walking through, it's their ideas is what they are. So like you could say this one area is going to be for like, oh, I want to have a fire pit setting. So maybe it's more of a relaxed so I say here to identify use areas. Okay. So then that way you can quickly locate something on a plan or a map or whatever you have to work with before you get to the conceptual stage where you're actually laying out fixtures and stuff. It's a real broad stroke. This is going to be a public use area for pool and activities, things like that. And I'll show you on this next slide. We'll have some pictures of this, but think of it as a broad stroke, something to work with so that you can build your conceptual plans with.
And I think the name bubble plan comes from cartoons, and they have the little bubble, and that's what they're saying or what they're thinking.
Right.
That's where it comes from.
Sure. So like here's one that I had done way back, but it's an idea. So you can see this is the layout of the house here, a residence. And then this, you can see the property that surrounds. I don't know if you can read my drawing here very well, but I usually show all the hardscape, and I don't, it's not exact, it's diagrammatic, so it's close. And then I'll show the trees in a darker color so that I know where my trees are located. And then the bubble here, the bubbles are like this, the highlight color. So like, see this pink dashed line circle? That's one area. Then the green here is another one. And then the blue's another, the green's another, and the pink's another. So I've got 5 different areas here on this plan. This is a backyard. So like this first area, this pink area, again, it's a personal use area, I call it, where it's for more of a like a wellness garden. It's a place this customer actually loves to do Bible studies, and she likes to go sit out in the garden by herself and read. So I wanted to have an isolated area that I could illuminate, whether it's at night or if she's just thinking or whatever, that she can go to for something like that. The green are going to be more active areas for like the kids or for, social gatherings. So like here you've got a fire pit. This is an outdoor patio space. Here's the pool area up here. These are going to be more active places. Here's a more remote area over here that was interesting with a walk-through, a water feature. There's like a walk-through gate that goes to this back bench area. And you can see with the orange arrows that I used for showing directions of view. So like if you're sitting on the bench looking back through this, you can see the water feature. If you're coming up into this area, you look through and you can see the bench in the back corner. So again, they're just ideas, but very broad stroked. So that's just to kind of.
I like that though. I mean, I like the idea of the orange arrows showing the views, and yeah, it's nice.
It just gives you reference so that you can develop the plan. It doesn't show any fixtures or any equipment yet. It's just strictly how is it going to be used, the area. So that's the benefit of a bubble plan. Okay, sorry about that, Chris. There you go.
No. It was your plan, and so I thought that's what the orange arrows were for, but I didn't know for a fact. So a conceptual plan, like that plan, it's conceptual. This is the idea. These are the areas that I know we're going to do the lighting, or I think we're going to do the lighting in these areas. And when I do that, I do a breakdown of that area. I would say, the personal space that she uses to have Bible study, I would call that space something, depending upon how she named it. And then I would do the description of the lighting in there in my breakdown. And it's just, I don't know. It only has to be good enough to get them to say, okay, let's move forward.
Yeah.
And that's what you're really just trying to do. And you should try to make it easy to understand. It doesn't need to be technical. It doesn't need to be, that these lights are 2,700 Kelvin and these other lights are going to be another color temperature. They don't need to know that. When I worked for Nightlight, we had 3 light fixtures. We had an uplight, a downlight, and a path light. And that's all we used for years and years and years and years and years. And it wasn't until the advent of LED that things started to get a little bit more niche-y. But you can do a lot with just an uplight, a downlight, and a path light. And different color temperature bulbs and so on and so forth. Next slide.
Okay. Again, this just was a sample I had of one of like a conceptual plan. So you can see here, same kind of general design drawing that I do with the trees, and I show all the hardscape layout. So this is a driveway. This is planting areas around the perimeter. The house is up here with a garage. There's a pool in the back. So all I did on here, because it's conceptual, I don't show any wiring. I don't do any, I just showed fixture locations, which, some like to do, some don't. You can do these in colored dots, or you can use symbols like I did. Okay. And then that way I can go through and I can kind of explain to them what I'm doing in this area and why. But I don't get into any details beyond that, just enough to basically show them, hey, he knows what he's doing, obviously. It looks nice, it gets them all excited that they're seeing something on paper.
That's definitely nice.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think it's great. I like the idea of just seeing fixture locations. I don't need colors. I know what the light's going to do. And we should all know what the light's going to do. And this is, it's nice. You have transformer locations, you have power, you have downlights, you have path lights. It's a nice job.
Thanks. Yeah, it works. It's worked for me for years. So again, everybody
Yeah.
has a little bit different process on how they like to present things. So again, just do whatever works best for you, but you don't have to give away the farm, because the other benefit here too is, let's say, they pay you for the design, which they should do anyways, but you don't do anything detailed until the end, like with an as-built, once you've gotten paid for the whole job, right? And this way, if they decide, well, I just want to pay for the design, they do that, but they decide to go with somebody else to install, they're going to have to figure out how to wire this. They're not going to be able to tell off of this plan. So that's the other benefit of not giving them everything.
Well, and there's no fixtures mentioned. It's just uplight, downlight,
Right,
backlight,
right,
a
right,
pendant light, a transformer. It doesn't even tell you how big of a transformer it is,
right.
or how many, well, you have to count them up, but it's not giving away everything.
Sure. So like, here's another way that some people like to do things. All I wanted to show here with Chris was that, like, if you can use graphic representations, colored, take a picture of whatever's out there. You can get these little symbols off of the, like whatever the, I don't know.
Paint.
Yeah, paint, or
Paint
you
very
have different
simple.
symbols like as part of a presentation, and you like a triangle, circle, square, whatever, and then you can draw little arrow lines or whatever. And that's all I did here, is to say, okay, here's a downlight. It's shining down to this area here in the yard. Here's an uplight that's picking up this section of tree. Something graphic that people can simply understand. They can see that and go, oh, okay, that makes sense. The red are the downs, the yellows are the uplights. Okay, okay.
Yeah, and it's they don't know lighting. Lighting. And so what the light's gonna do, but somehow you have to tell them or show them what that is. This is nice because even though it's a daylight shot, it does show dappled, broken up light on the grass. And so if the sun is out, I always say, well, the moonlight's gonna look like this, except for this is sunlight, but the shadows are gonna look similar to what you see here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very good.
Yeah, other plans. Depending upon, again, the size of the job, where it is, residential, commercial, industrial, city park, out of town, in town. What kind of plans can you get? Can you get the architectural plans? Can you get the landscape plan? Is there a construction plan? Because this whole job is not even built yet. And if that's the case, where's the power? Where's my power going to be, and how is it going to be controlled? And where do I want power? Because you're going to have to talk to other people and say, hey, I need power here in the tool shed, and I need power here by the pool, and it needs to be controlled somehow. Is there a control company that's doing all the controls? It all depends on the type of the job. What's the budget on the job? It's always a big question to ask is, well, how much do you want to spend on the lighting? Or how much do you want to spend on this part of the lighting? And try to find that out if you can. I don't know if there's a subtle way to do that. Chris probably has a better way of doing that than me. But if you're getting plans from a landscape contractor or a landscape architect or an architect, you're going to have a pretty good idea that the budget is probably not a problem. They're high net worth individuals, as George likes to call them.
Sure.
And who else is involved? Is there an interior designer that wants to do part of the landscape lighting or wants to be included in the landscape lighting because they're the interior designer? But I like that. I like more people, coming to me with ideas. Some of them may not be good ideas, but you still have to listen to them.
Yeah, I think the only thing I would say on that is, it's good. You get a lot of good feedback from all the different trades or the professions that are there. But sometimes, obviously, as you can imagine, when you have more people more,
More opinions.
you have control problems sometimes, like who actually owns what part of the job, who controls it, who makes those decisions. See, the more people that are involved, sometimes it can get muddier, and it also causes additional delays on the project, or it can. So
It could.
just be aware of that. If typically residential, you're pretty lucky because it's usually if you're getting a call to go out, you're usually just working by yourself. You know, you don't have to deal with a lot of people. So that speeds up the process.
Doesn't
And-
clog up your incoming money either.
That's
Should
true.
we try and shoot to work with architects and builders after the landscaping team has gone in and put their plants in the ground?
I think I think you got to look at it. It depends on, are you trying to get into having a good working relationship with those people? Then I would say yes. I would try to bring them in as much as you can. But again, just knowing if you bring these people in, you may not get to do what you really want to do or should do because they may try to take control. Does that make sense?
Sure.
And most landscape architects that I've worked with are like, I don't want to have anything to do with the lighting. You're the lighting guy. You do the lighting. Just make it look really good, because they have too many other things that they have to worry about and they don't want to worry about that. So
Yep.
typically that's the way most landscape architects work with me.
Mhm.
Are you working with them on the tail end of once they install their plants and different material?
No,
You
usually
go there?
before.
You're doing your pre-wiring then?
Could be. I mean, it depends, but like one of the plans that we're going to look at a little bit later is Lake Point Tower. And it's a job that I did in 2011, I believe. And I was brought in by the landscape architect. It's a rooftop garden on top of a 50-story building. It's right at the edge of the lake. There's 3.5 feet of soil on top of the roof. There's a pond up there. There are trees, locust trees that are 24 to 36-inch caliper trees on this property. I mean, it's nuts. There was power there. They were just changing a few things around the pond. But somebody on the board decided they wanted to do lighting. So we were brought in because the landscape architect doesn't do lighting. And they wanted somebody to do the lighting. They wanted moonlighting coming out of these trees. And so that's what we did. It was kind of right at the beginning of LED, so some of it was LED. And the LED failed a lot when LED first started. So we were out there a lot because things broke out of our control. But it's a great job. I don't know what it looks like nowadays. I haven't seen it. It's a condo building, so you can't, I'll just go up to the park. No, you have to live in the building to go to the park.
Wow. Interesting.
So bidding, are you bidding on another project that somebody else has given you the plans of? That it's not a job that you do, but it's a job that they're sending out to 5 landscape contractors or 5 lighting contractors and saying, we want you to bid on this plan. And so you have to bid on it. Typically you can probably tell what most of the fixtures are, but they may have a brand of fixture that you're not used to. They may be saying this is line voltage, and you go, but wait a minute, time out. This could be low voltage. Why does it have to be line voltage? And so it's how did you get this job, and do you want to bid on it? And once you win it, who's going to be the contractor? Are you going to be the contractor, or somebody else going to be the contractor? And who has the controls? The plans, the specs, the details, the job controls. Are you the designer? Are you the contractor? Or are you both? Are you just bidding on this because you want to try to get into this part of business, whatever it is, high-end residential or industrial. There's a lot of, I see a lot of bad sign lights, but those are usually done by an electrician and somebody says, just put a light on that thing. So it depends on the job, I think. And are you creating a bid that's going to go out to other guys that they're going to bid on your work? Are you doing it that way?
And we can also look at this too from, as the design process, because remember there's 4 stages here. First stage being development, then we go into bidding. And I think this is included in case, let's say the homeowner or the architect presents all this to you. So you went out and you did all your development information gathering in the beginning. The next stage is this part, the bidding, like Chris was just talking about. So will you be bidding on this job against other people to win the job? Or are you automatically in to do the install as well as this design that you've put together? So those are 2 things. If you are having to bid, then there's a whole bidding process, which is kind of what this is talking about. The legal, there's plans, specification details. There's a bid package sometimes that is included, that's sent off to whoever's basically bidding. And there's a timetable for all that. And then who selects the winning bid? Is it the homeowner or the building, the owner, or is it the architect, or are you
or is it the
actually,
condo board?
yeah, or is it you, the designer, who did the development, but you're just now, let's say you're not doing the actual installation and you have to select who wins the contract to install the work. So that's why this is in here. So
Yeah, and it's all, I don't know, it's all good. It's sometimes it's hard to bid on other plans because you'll never get it for whatever reason. But if you try, you never know. It may work. Depends on the job.
So on this slide here, it was just talking about the between in-house work and outside work, which, like we said, are you doing the actual installation, or are you having people bid on the work?
Or the way I work now is, I can still put stuff in the ground, but I don't want to. So I just design it, and then I have 2 or 3 different companies that I go to do the install. And that way the warranty is with that company. They warranty the fixtures, they warranty the work. All I've done is create the design, and then I go to the install and I work with the crew and I say, this is where I want to put the light. I flag the location. And if there's downlights, I aim the downlights as best I can during the day. And the trick to that, I don't know if you guys have ever done this, but if you stand in the spot where that's sort of the center of the light, and then you walk left, and then you walk right, and then you walk forward and walk back, as long as you see the light bulb, you're in the light. So as soon as you can't see the light bulb because of the shielding or a branch or whatever, then you're out of the light. And you can get pretty close that way of aiming a light during the daytime. And so that's what I do. I work with them and I aim the lights, and then I'll go back and look at it the next night and see if it's okay. And if the light is bad, then I'll have them come out and I'll have them adjust the light for me. But that way I don't have to deal with any of the warranty end of it.
Chris, how do you select who gets the job? If you have, let's say, 3 guys that you go to.
Mostly it's geographically. Is the job on the North Shore? If the job's on the North Shore, then I take it to Lightscape. If the job is in the western suburbs, I take it to Nightlight. And then if it's a sort of specialty kind of thing, then I try to find somebody who's gonna work with me on that specialty thing.
Okay.
I have one light that I just put in at a gal's house. I showed it to you, Mark. It's a street light, and we're hanging it upside down from a tree.
Mhm.
I can't wait to see it again. But yeah, that's a different kind of animal. So you have to find the right person to do that because it's going to take longer, more time.
Yep. Good deal.
The bid package specs. Um, who and when to bid on the work? Do you really want to work on the job? Is it really in your wheelhouse, or is this something that you're trying to develop and grow into an area, whatever it is? And then you may want to bid on it just so that you can get to know who the other people are in that area. Quality assurances, who has the authority? If there's scheduling conflicts, how do you deal with that? And the bid package, the best practices, specifications, details, expectations. Expectations is probably the big one. What are people looking for? And if you're on time and do the work consistently and clean up after yourself, that's always a biggie. I don't know,
Yep.
Mark, anything else there?
I just think again, I think the bid package in this section here is good for the more detail you can provide as a designer to let people know what to expect, like you'd said, the expectations. Does the owner have control to make random calls anytime they want, or do they need to have a process where they go through approval through the designer yourself before, there should be some sort of a hierarchy of command and control at all times so that things don't run crazy out of control.
Yeah, if the client all of a sudden decides that the moonlighting doesn't look good, but they've never seen it and take it out of the tree, well, hold on, wait a minute, it's already in the tree. Let's look at it and see if you like it before we yank it out of the tree. You know?
Right. But it's just establishing that authority and control element again. And
Yeah.
that's something, I guess, as a good designer, it's to determine this in it up front with the owner or whoever's paying you to control this work. You let them know this is what I'm going to control, this is what I'm going to do, and allow me to handle that for you, set up those expectations before things go too far down the road. Because same thing when you get on a job site and let's say a landscaper or an electrician or somebody else does something that is not supposed to happen, then do you have the power to say something or to change that or to control it or not? So
The design implementation, putting it in, understanding those expectations, the clients and others, the other trades on the job, or it could be a condo board, which is what it was for me at Lake Point Tower. But I had to answer to, 5 or 6 people in that board. What is the workflow and scheduling? Where am I going to be in this mix? I have to be after the landscape is in. I have to be after the irrigation is in, but I want to go in before the sod goes in because once the sod goes in, they have to water the daylights out of it and nobody can work in it. So you have to make sure that you fit in that line and you stand up for yourself and say, hey, this is where I'm going. Product use alternates, expectation or acceptance, quality control. You know what fixtures you like to work with and you know how well they work. That's the fixture you should use, whatever it is, that fixture, and that company. Is there something that's better? Probably. Is there something that's worse? Probably. And you have to know what other manufacturers' fixtures do or can't do, and will you accept those? The installation and control, who controls that and when? You should control all of that. You should know when the installation is going to happen. I have a job that was supposed to go in on the 24th. The landscape's not done, so it can't go in on the 24th. I can't go in until after the landscape is done because they're going to dig it up. So you have to know where you fit in that chain of command and adjusting. Do you offer that? Do you need to do that? Does the light have to be adjusted at night? I think it's placed in the right spot, minimal adjustment at best. And I'm a kind of a big, because I lit in the film business, you control the light with a lot of what are called flags, and you control it so that it doesn't go to different areas. By using longer shields in places, downlights especially, you can control where that light's going to go and how can we aim it so that it doesn't shoot over into the neighbor's yard. I'm big about light trespassing, the light not trespassing beyond the property. Shouldn't, unless the neighbor says it's okay. But who's responsible for those adjustments? Do you offer that or not? I would try to look at it at night. I always try to look at a job at night. If something needs an adjustment, I'll get out there with a screwdriver and adjust it if I can, if it's on the ground. It's typically just an uplight. And the reveal with the client, the final look at everything, the wow. And that's hard to do because the sun takes a long time to go away and the lighting only gets better as it gets darker. So the reveal isn't really a reveal. And I think the client needs to live with it for a little while to make sure that it's matching their expectations. I don't know, Mark, what do you think?
Yeah, I think another way to look at design implementation too is because I think if you look at the control as a lighting designer, we should be in control of all these different stages and elements within our projects. If it's our job, and if the expectation of the owner is that we are handling all these things, there is one point in here during this implementation stage where the contractor or the installer actually takes ownership. So we have to relinquish control to them as they're doing the installation, although they do need to listen to us with regards to, as it says here, product use, like the parameters. What's acceptable, what's not acceptable. And that's in terms of the acceptable products that have been specified for the job, the acceptable practices that should be used to install the job. We have to give an okay on that. But overall, the contractor is responsible for the workability of the system. You know, they're installing it, they take ownership of that. They're going to have the warranties on all the equipment that's installed. So they have to have that ownership. The only other part where we would step back in during this phase where they're in control is that nighttime adjustment when we're aiming. We have to be able to aim so that it meets our design intent. That's the importance of that. So we take that ownership back and then we move into that reveal or that next final stage to where acceptance by the owner. That's all. Thanks.
Yeah, and I agree with that. You know, I mean, the fixtures you spec should be the fixtures that are going in or an equivalent, whatever it is that you feel is necessary. And then the aiming for sure. I mean, there's always a sweet spot, especially for a downlight, that where you want the light to be. And hiding the light as best you can, hiding the fixture itself, but not where the light is coming from, but tried to hide the fixture. George is going to talk about that, I think.
Yeah. Very good. So this,
Ask a question.
yeah, go ahead.
In the last program we had, you shared with us the notes at the end. Is that something that's going to be available on these?
Yes. Yes. I'll get that to you.
I'm writing as fast as I can, but I missed a
No, I
few
know
things
there's a
here and
lot of
there.
information and charts and things. So yeah, I'll
Well,
send off this.
And anybody could call me or text me or email me anytime well, not anytime. I don't want to get a call 3 in the morning and say, Chris, but I'm open to taking questions from anybody. You know, I I like to light stuff, and I think we all kind of like to light stuff. So I'm just
Appreciate that.
throwing
Thank
out.
you.
So
The
this page
relationship.
here just basically shows the difference, the relationship between designer and contractor. If you have separate jobs, if you're a design build guy like me, where you do both, then it really doesn't matter because you're doing it all anyways. But if you're separated, where like Chris is the designer and he brings in a contractor, then there should be this establishment of, like we just talked about, with control, who's in charge, who's ultimately responsible for quality assurance, who's responsible for the warranty of the systems, the aiming, all these things should be factored in for you in that understanding. So if you're working with a contractor, they need to know that that's the, that's how it works. Otherwise,
And
go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, and I was just gonna say, and that's the way I work with my contractors is this is my design. I'm going to aim the fixtures, but I want the fixture here, here, there, there. And then I stay with them when they put a downlight in, and I'm pretty decent at aiming that light during the day, and knowing that I'm not, it's going to go where I want it to go.
Good. Yeah, if you guys remember, like, if you look at Jan Moyer, she's highly recognized around the world. She has this type of relationship. You can find all this type of information in her books as well, where she separates this out because she's usually the designer, and then she'll have teams come in, same thing, to do the installation work. And then, that responsibility jumps back and forth. So.
I have a question.
Yeah.
At this point in time, as the designer being in control, does this also place the designer in control of the cable placement and voltage drop calculations and so forth?
Yeah, I mean, you should know where the cable drop, where your run is going to go. If it has to cross a sidewalk, is there a sleeve there? Do you have to put the sleeve in, or is somebody else going to put the sleeve in for you? But you should know where your cable is going to go, or have a pretty good idea because you're going to have to buy the cable and run it. And you should be figuring out distances that you are from transformers so that you know how much of a drop there's going to be in voltage. There isn't that huge of a drop in voltage with LED anymore. I mean, towards halogen, it was more important. I don't know that it's that much more important. It depends on how far you're going. I mean,
Sure.
if you're going to go 3, 4, or 500 feet, yeah, you're going to have some voltage drop. And is it better to put another outlet out there 300 feet somewhere hidden in a bed behind a rock or behind a tree or somewhere in the ground, where you could put another transformer because maybe it's a different zone?
Now, Chris, do you deal with many in-ground transformers or?
No, I haven't. No, I moisture and transformers don't go well together.
No.
And the ground is always wet.
Sure.
So it should be out above ground, but you don't want it to be looking out, hey, look at me, I'm a great big transformer here, or even a small transformer. You want to hide it as best you can.
Absolutely.
And Olin, the other thing I would say here is it depends on how you want this arrangement. Ideally, or I should say ultimately, whoever installs the system is the one that's responsible for all those things. So he or she should know about the voltage drop, the calculations, know what's best for the best performance of the system. Now, ideally, the designer can give feedback and set the expectations for the contractor, but usually there's a separation there because the installer isn't doing it, the work, they're responsible for that. So if it's not performing like it's supposed to, then the contractor's held responsible for that.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Makes
But
sense.
if you're design build, then you're
Yeah, then
looking
you're
at your
doing both.
design and you're gonna put it in. So you have to be thinking about all that stuff at the same time as well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, if you're working on large properties, I always find more transformers are better, shorter cable runs, and fewer future problems.
Yeah. Yeah, and you also created zones by doing that.
Yeah,
And if you wanted to control it by zones, you could control it by zones. You know,
yeah.
maybe
Nine
there's
times, nine times
no,
out
go
of 10,
ahead.
larger properties, you're already working with an electrician and a smart home guy. So yeah, they go ahead and hook that up for you.
Yeah,
Good.
Yeah, and I think if you again, depending on your situation, if you're only a lighting designer and that's all you prefer to be, then find a really good contractor that you can trust or contractors that you know how they're going to have their systems built, and then that way you don't have to worry about that aspect. But if you aren't, and then I would learn it all, do it all. As a designer, you should ultimately know more than the contractor. That's my opinion, but
yeah,
not
I
a lot
agree.
of guys do
I
that.
agree totally.
Yeah, I agree too. I mean, I try to know more than them if I can, but
All right, excellent. All right, let's go to the next one here. Okay, this is the final phase.
the final phase, stage 4, designer, owner, contractor, final walk through the job acceptance. So you're walking through the project with everybody and everybody's saying yes, yes, yes. Everybody's signing off on it. Do you have to have an as-built plan? Who's gonna create this as-built plan? You designed it, so you should probably do the as-built plan and some kind of documentation. What fixtures were used and so on and so forth. The warranties and contract information, is that the designer or you the designer installer? You know, who's, as Mark had said, whoever put it in is going to warranty it. They put it in. If it's not working properly, they are the people that are going to bring it back. If you're a design build, that means you're going back. And that means it's going to cost you, that wasn't in the budget to go back again. And who does the future service? And do you have a service agreement, a maintenance agreement? Once a year, you're going to come out and do whatever it is, clean all the fixtures, change everything, reset time clocks, whatever it is. Or it's a it's a good revenue stream, I think.
Mhm.
And it typically means more work, because if you're out there, they're going to say, hey, you know, I want to do something over here. And that's what it ends up being. Um, but you should have some kind of an agreement like that. And what are the owner's responsibilities? Sometimes the owners don't want any responsibilities at all. But if the electric keeps tripping, but it's not because of an overload on your part, it's a problem with the electrical, then the owner has to own up to taking care of that electrical issue, whatever that issue might be. Um, and maybe the owner wants to have more responsibilities, but I don't know. I don't give them a lot of responsibilities typically.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the way that you can look at owner responsibilities too is to say, it's your responsibility to ensure that maintenance is done annually. Now, if they choose not to do a service maintenance agreement with you, then I've always taken the position that, well, then that voids any warranties whatsoever, and therefore they own the system, and but the problem with that is that then your work that you worked so hard to create something beautiful goes to pot over the next several years.
Yeah.
And therefore you can't use that as a real good reference for yourself. So it's always to your advantage to make them, accept the idea that they're going to have maintenance done on their systems. It is a great revenue stream and it's a way to get a lot of work down the road. And it's your only real option if you ever decide to sell your business is if you have maintenance accounts.
Yeah.
It's repeatable revenue stream that comes in annually. And if you just decide to sell off or whatever, once you leave the business, the design goes, the installation goes, everything else goes, right? They cannot repeat that, but maintenance they can because that's a recurring service. So
And typically for me anyway, the maintenance guys would say, oh yeah, and by the way, over at the Smith's house, they want to add a couple of more lights in the backyard. And that's an automatic phone call for me because that's an easy sale for sure because they're already a client and all you have to do is put in a couple of extra lights. And you probably have an as-built drawing and you probably know where the wire runs are because they're on the as-built and it should be an easy install and easy revenue.
yep.
And it definitely worth it. Even in LED, it's still worth it. Quartz halogen, we used to do it all the time because the lamps would only last a year. But
And one final thing I will say, and we're going to get into this here next, I believe, is on as-built plans. Really, you should get used to creating as-built plans, however that is, whatever your method is, documenting what you did, where things are located, because it's part of the whole, the documentation package, your records for the future. And again, if you ever are thinking again along the lines of selling your business off, if you have these plans, these records, that only supports what you're doing even more. And it makes it easy for whoever takes ownership of that leg of the business that's being purchased.
Yeah.
So here's go ahead, Chris. This is some of your drawings that you were
so
talking
this is Skyline Park. This is at Lake Point Tower in Chicago. It's on Lakeshore Drive. It looks out over the lake. It's a fun 50-something story building. And this is one end of it. This is a great big lagoon in here. And this was a seating area. The lower right-hand corner is sort of a seating area. We did a
here.
bunch of moonlights. That's what the lines are with the arrows pointed at it. The end of the line is what I call the Neil point, and that's sort of the center of the light. So I know that the light's gonna look, if it's one light, it's gonna look like a teardrop, with the top of the teardrop being at the tree and the widest part of the light at the bottom. If it's two lights, like it is in the tree on the left, then it's gonna look like a bow tie. And you know that you're gonna have, it's like two teardrops coming into each other. And the wide parts are kind of touching each other. And that's when I walked along that path, which is what that stepper path is. And I would walk along that and I'd know how far the light would reach. The little stars that are on there is a distribution point. So at that point, multiple lights were brought together into one run back to the transformer. And that's what the blue line is and the green line is. Those are two separate transformers, one doing one area and one doing another area. Skyline Park. I broke it down into areas. There was the north path to the barbecue lighting, the barbecue area lighting, and the south path to the pool lighting. And that's what we're looking at is the south path to the pool lighting. And there are, the trees were numbered because it was a landscape architect who brought this to me. This is Hitchcock Design brought this to us. And the trees were all named and numbered. So it was out of tree number 50, the locust tree, we're going to do 2 moonlights. It just, I don't know, it's kind of a finished product. It was a nice job. Um, I don't know what it looks like now. I don't know if they've done maintenance. Like, this was done in, I'm sorry, 2013. Is when it first went in. The legend
Are these
kind of-
plans provided by the landscape architect that we're looking at?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And then we added the lighting to it. And they ran it, this was at a time, Nightlight never did any, I don't know, computer generated lighting plans. It was all done by hand. And this is computer generated from our hand drawing. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
They created it. And their symbols are on there. Those are the symbols that they chose.
Right here.
Yeah.
Okay.
And just pick symbols that you like. This is a job I did. This is a home in River Forest, which is a community to the west of downtown Chicago. It's east of me, but west of the city. And it's pretty simple. There's, 2 uplights on the facade of the house. There's uplights on 2 trees. There's uplights on 2 columns. There's 2 path lights. It's a center hall entry home or colonial. And so things need to be symmetrical left to right. It should be a mirrored image of itself. And it is and it isn't. There's 1 tree on the right that's lit, and there's 1 tree on the left, but they're not in the same foreground background. But everything is symmetrical. It's just a center hall entry
Balanced.
home. And that the home decides what your design is going to look like in this case.
Mm-hmm. Got it.
And it's just simple. It's uplights and pathlights. This next one, the next one is, and I got a plat of survey from this, and it's we used an uplight, we used a downlight, and we used a pathlight. And this is again a home this is in Hinsdale, which is another wealthy suburb of Chicago. And it's the path lights bring you up the path to the front door. There's trees on left and right. I mean, it's fairly obvious things to light. There was nothing really to light on the facade, so there's nothing really lit on the facade. And 1 transformer in the backyard takes care of the whole thing. This was done in 2021. So not too long ago.
Good. Oh, this one, yeah, this was one of mine. This was an architect or landscape architect had done the base plan for this. And then what I did is I just came through, and you can see with a darker pen, I drew on my trees to show like where the trunks are at with the canopies. And then again, because it's conceptual, more or less, I threw my fixtures on there and color coded them. Keep it simple. So down lights are all in pink. Path lights are in green. And then I had some the uplighting, which is in yellow. It's hard to see. They almost look like it's white here, but the color had faded. But that's how I typically I'll do stuff like this. And it works for me. Same kind of thing like what Chris was talking about. So, and then this is the same thing because it was such a big job. The first one here is just fixtures and where transformer locations were on the property. The next one I used more as an as-build because I showed where cable runs were going. This job just happened to be where most of the transformers and the main cable runs were already established on the job from somebody else previously. He didn't want to have that all torn out. Plus it was half of it was underneath hardscape. So I left that and I found out where those home runs were distributed to. That's what the blue lines are. And then I tapped off of that and I fed with new cable runs as like my sub hubs and sub main runs that fed out from there to pick up these things. So again, I do this type of documentation so that I know what's going on for my own records. So
And,
again,
and here's a question, you know, you're using somebody else's cable that was put in on
yes,
another job, and like you said, a lot of it's under hardscape. Do you warranty that cable
no,
or
no.
no?
I told the homeowner right up front, I said, look, if we're going to use your existing system, those things, I do not warranty any of that. Now, fortunately, it was all like 8-gauge cable, and he had like probably 10 transformers for this job. It was way overkill. So I wasn't too worried about it. And if I ever needed to abandon it, I could always pick up, something else
Right.
later. But I did let him know. That was my stipulation that, look,
Yeah.
I'm not going to warranty anybody else's work. And, it's been working for like 10 or 15 years now. Never had any problems. So I've been lucky.
That's a nice home. I just pulled it up on Google.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he's a big developer guy here in town, and then he's got a big property up in Tahoe up on the lake, and so he's been a good customer of mine. So, anyways,
So
now,
even
oh, go ahead.
even you get larger. Obviously, that's a pretty good sized job.
Yeah,
And I think it was the slide or two prior to that. It was just a very simple that
yeah,
one right there.
Right.
yep.
Yep,
You
just
can
a
do
simple
any
network,
extremes
maybe
like this.
7, 8 pictures.
Yeah.
You do the same type of overhead plan for any of the different jobs you do to.
Well, I do. I don't know what Chris does, but I always do things in this. It's called a plan view like this, as if you're a bird's eye view looking down, so that you can see what the layout of this is what I call my scope of work. It's the property lines, everything within the property lines I did work within. So then that way I know for my own reference. And if there's multiple areas, you could set up, all right, this is phase 1. Then there's phase 2. I mean, it just depends on how big the project is. If you have a smaller job where maybe it's only 8 lights or 4 lights, whatever, it doesn't matter. The idea is you documenting it helps, again, if you're me, I've done probably over 1,000 jobs now since in 25 years. I haven't done a ton, but I've done enough to where you can't remember everything. It's
Right.
hard. So the more you can document, the better off you're going to be in the long run. So,
And it really doesn't matter the size of the job.
yeah.
Because I'm turning stuff over to somebody else to put it in, they need a plan. And that's the plan that I give them. If it's a plat of survey, it's a plat of survey. If it's a landscape architect's plan, it's a landscape architect's plan. And I either copy it or email it to them. I like 11 by 17 because I can do it in my home office, but there's still Kinkos out there. You can still make big copies.
Yeah.
And if they send it to you as a file and it's too big for your 11 by 17, then take that, put it on a jump drive and take it to Kinko's and have it printed on 2x3, whatever size it is. And then work
Office
from
D,
there.
if you've got an Office Depot in the area for $6.95, they'll actually shoot out a color blueprint plan for you from what you send them.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Find a good local printer or a copy. I have 1 in 10. That's who does. See, what I'll do is if I don't have a prepared plan like this in advance that I can draw on top of, I'll go and print this out. I'll get copies made, and then I add my graphics on top of it. Or like in this case here, I had to create this and this is an entryway to a big HOA community. And you can see it's it's diagrammatic. That's all it is. It's not actual scale, it's relative scale. So,
Right.
and this was all forested area. So you can see, and I didn't draw all the trees in there, but you can see there's a ton of trees on here. And I just put stuff that I needed. So you got the roadways, you got the planter areas, the islands, the main trees that I was going to do some illumination in. And that's all. And then I just put my other symbols on here because this was probably from here all the way to the top of the hill, I'm guessing was, maybe 1,000 or 1,200 feet. I mean, it's
So
a
a
good
quarter of a
distance.
mile.
Yeah, so it's, you're driving up this hill and then back down. So this chart here I created, here's another, again, depending on how detailed you want to get on your documentation, I have like another chart, I call it my cable distribution schedule, and it shows which transformer, what zone, what the home run numbers are, the color coding I used on the cable, the size of the cable. I mean, you can go into all, like, what's the amp load on each one of those cable runs? I got that listed. The voltage at the hubs, how many lights are on those individual hubs, and where those locations are. You can go to that kind of detail if you want. It's up to you. But on a bigger project like this, you can see, I mean, we've got multiple hubs. That's what all these little circles are showing up along this whole roadway. There's basically I think there's two sets of transformers on here that picked up this entire thing. And, I had to be able to identify it somehow. So that's why these are important.
And the problem I've run into is, like, I've got a property right now that I'm working on, and it's probably a 15-acre property. And you go on Google Earth and you really don't see anything. It's nothing but oaks.
Yeah.
So all you see is the canopies, and it's
Look
Yeah.
at it in the
it's just hard
winter.
to distinguish the different areas. But I guess, just
Well,
trying to
we're gonna
draw
have
something on.
we're gonna have a class coming that's I'm gonna get into talking about plans and preparing some of these things and how to go around and do these types of diagrammatic sketching and things, so that way you can plot your own. It just, obviously things like that are a little better if you're in person, because then we can walk through it all together. But the idea is we could probably do some of this on Zoom, and that will help. And then you can see how to plot some of this. It doesn't have to be perfect, but close. That's all that matters, so that
Try,
you can determine
try to look at that job in Google Earth, but look at the date of the Google Earth picture and look for a date in the fall or the winter when there are no leaves or
Mm.
a lot
Okay.
less leaves.
Yeah, that's a good
If,
idea.
if it's oaks, you're still going to have leaves, but they'll be less, and you might be able to see through it a little bit better because they take pictures all the time. Google Earth keeps taking pictures all the time.
Yeah.
I didn't realize you could go in and change the dates, though.
Yeah,
You can actually go into, if you've got the pro version, there's a slider on there somewhere. I think you can pull it back into the early 80s or late 70s. It's pretty cool.
Wow. Yeah, that is nice.
it's a good tool, and especially something like that where it's like 15 acres. That's a big piece of property. There's probably areas
It
where
is.
they're not, but
Good deal. So the only other thing I wanted to show on here too is that a sleeving plan, like if you're working on more commercial or even, well, it doesn't matter, resident, it doesn't matter what the property is. This just happens to be a resident or a commercial job. I wanted to show the size of conduit and where those conduits were located through the parking area. So then that way, again, for reference down the road, can we pull additional wires through if we ever need to? Where do we need to add the conduits? And then again, you can work with whether it's other contractors that are doing the hardscape or they're doing the irrigation. They could throw these in for you and tape off each end, leave 6 inches on each side or whatever the case may be. So then that way you don't have to worry about it. But just again, conduit's important, sleeving access.
I stop at job sites where I see a driveway going in and I go, did anybody put a sleeve in there? They're like, what? I said, a sleeve, just an empty pipe. Somebody should put a 2-inch empty pipe underneath this driveway. You'll never know when you're going to need it.
Mhm.
And the cost of the PVC is nothing compared to having to bring out somebody to horizontally bore underneath the driveway.
Right.
Post installation work, what is the service maintenance agreement? How many times are you gonna go there? What are you gonna charge for? What are you gonna do? They're gonna wanna know what that. Future services, damages, if it's a storm damage, takes a tree out that you have 3 lights in, who's gonna take those lights out? Who's gonna move them? What are we gonna do with the lights? Who's gonna cut this tree out? Is that the owner's responsibility? Is it the tree guy? Who is it? And what are the owner's responsibilities? Basic cleaning and timer controls. And nowadays it's, I don't know, if you have, Lutron has a great app for controlling things now, and they have a plug now, the Lutron Cassetta system, where you
Mhm.
can take
Mm.
you can plug a transformer into their plug and plug that into a normal outlet, and you can create a network. You still have to have a hub that works off of the client's Wi-Fi, but if you have a hub, if they have a hub, then they can do other things in their house as well. You can put any light switches you want on things. I have them, I have it, it controls, doesn't control my landscape lighting, but it controls the coach lights on my garage. And they come on every night at sunset and they go off every morning at sunrise. I don't touch it. There's nothing to do with it. Lutron is amazing. Lutron Cassetta, I love it. And I know they make a plug. I've never used it, but I know they make it.
Good deal. One final thought on future services. If somebody says, "Oh, it's LED, you'll never need to do any services on this lighting system," that's garbage. Don't buy into that. You need to let the homeowner or the business owner, whoever, the property owner, I should say, let them know there's going to be future services that are required on this system to keep it up and going. You're going to have, like Chris had said, damages, whether it's the maintenance guys ramming things with mowers, maybe it's kids with baseball bats, that are running around, animals. I mean, there's going to be problems with fixtures. The other thing that, you might not think of is, what about the water damages? Hard water can cause calcium deposits on lenses. You're going to have plant growth that's going to grow over the light fixtures. So those either have to be relocated or you have to have pruning done for the plants so that you're not cutting off the illumination. Chemical applications. What about pesticides? What about fertilizers? Those can cause issues for the metals. So it's things, all these things take place, you're going to have maintenance. So
Squirrels love wire.
Yep.
For
Yep.
whatever reason, squirrels love wire. And I've been told that the insulation in the wire is a corn product, and so that's why they go after the wire. But regardless, you're going to replace wire if you're doing downlights. At some point, the wire is going to need to be replaced.
Yeah.
So there's nothing that's maintenance free
Right.
in general.
And high-end clients love to be coddled, don't they?
Oh yeah.
They
Oh, yeah.
love it. One of the first things they ask is, hey, we just had the pool guy in here and he didn't do so and so properly. We like our stuff to be upkept.
Yeah.
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 A lot of people, they really don't mind it, after they spend, $7,000-$10,000 or more. They prefer to have somebody come in. I do
Well,
have a
and
question.
you can have your crew come out there, but you should also show your face as well. Because
Absolutely.
you're the person that they trusted the most to get the job. So you should be there when you can,
Mm-hmm.
I think.
What types of fees are typical with servicing the system, like $20 per fixture or something of that nature?
Time and material.
I
Plus-
never
plus whatever material.
I never was responsible for that, so I don't know. Mark would know better in terms of what
Right.
you charge for.
Yeah, I think you have to come up with a system that works best for you. I used to do like a service maintenance agreement or a contract where I would try to prefigure it in advance, but I tell you, it for one reason or another would always be off or would kind of be problematic. And then people also get nervous when you say, when you give them a price based, let's say they have 100 lights and you charge them whatever it is, right? Say this is what it's going to cost annually to you. But then something else happens and then you've got to add that in or whatever the case may be. It would scare people sometimes because, again, cost, they always look at cost. So I've found the easiest way for me, I just tell people straight up front, it's time and materials on every service. So if they want to have
Okay.
4 services a year, like on that one project I showed you that had the cable runs, that guy has me out every year, 4 times a year minimum, just because he likes to have his fixtures clean. He doesn't care what it costs. So there's people like that, you know, but if you do it that way, you just tell them, look, this is the fairest way to do it. I'm not going to get taken advantage of. You're not going to get taken advantage of. And then you can work it out based on your labor rate, whatever your materials cost, your trip charges. I do charge a trip charge, if it's outside of like 5 miles, then because gas is as expensive as it is now. Plus you have wear and tear on your vehicle. I mean, you've got all these factors to plug in. So I would definitely, time and materials is the best way.
And the trip charge is good. I mean, you have to, the vehicle's gonna need maintenance.
Yeah.
And you have to somehow cover that, try to recoup that money, whatever it
And you
is.
got your guys sitting
It's
in
all
the
an expense
vehicle.
to yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. See, like in my area, and I'm sure a lot of you guys, bigger cities, I could have a job that's 20 miles away and it'll take me 35, 40 minutes to get there and then back. So now I've wasted an hour and 15 minutes just in a vehicle going back and forth, unless you have routes that you're working on, where you can absorb it or factor it in different ways like that. It's just that we're going to have, again, this will be another class. We're going to talk more about maintenance and service because this is an important aspect, something to consider. But just start thinking about that in terms of if you're doing routes, if you have a lot of clients, then there's probably really good ways to do that versus if you only have a handful. Like I only have like 60, maybe 100 clients. That's it still after all these years that I service. So I'm not out every single week. So
And maybe
anything
you
else?
can
Sorry.
put stuff together.
Yeah, absolutely. Save yourself. Okay, and then the final thoughts here.
Who has the ultimate control over the project? We as designers should. I mean, you should have as much control as you want and even more. It's your design. You want it to be the way you see it in your head. That's the way I see things. I see what it looks like in my head. And when it looks like that at night, then I know we're good. Um, and you should be paid for everything. I charge a flat design fee, but it only covers me to come out, meet the crew, set it up, aim everything during the daytime. If you want me to come out at night and aim it again, then I got to bring the crew out. We're going to have to pay that crew. So that's not it. Do you want as built? Some people don't, but you should have it just for your own plans, and keep it there. Like Mark was saying, if you ever decide to sell your business, it's just going to look better for you. Um, what should be included and not included in the concept plans? I think we pretty much hit on that.
Yeah,
I mean, it's you want to do enough to just sell the job, but not give away the farm.
right. Very good.
This is
Okay,
fun.
that's it on the slides here. Let me stop this. We're back to this screen. Okay. Now, how about any final questions from anybody or thoughts or needs?
It was
Oh,
good. We
good.
must have done a great job.
All right.
I
No,
think
good
Gary Mitchell,
questions
the
for asking
Nightlighter,
there.
does a great job.
This is just a quick class, but the idea of this class was to kind of give everybody like what is the flow, the stages that we have to go through as designers. Okay, remember the 4 stages. And then the other element is control. Who has control over what? It's important. So then that way, the more control you can have as a lighting designer, the better off you're going to be in terms of having a smooth project, getting paid, getting in and out of the job with no problems. It's when you don't have the controls in place when things happen and then it ends up costing you. So, any other thoughts, Chris? What do you think?
I agree. I mean, I like to have as much control as I can. I like to know who all the players are on the job. And if you have relationships with them, use that as best you can to keep that relationship or to build that relationship and bring other projects to it. I mean, I see lots of jobs where irrigation heads are just water is just spilling out of them because the head is broken or whatever. If I can turn that over to an irrigation guy and he can go out there and put a new head on it, and he may get a new client from that. And all I did was see something and pass it on to somebody. That's the way Nightlight was built. That's the way I have always sold landscape lighting. And that's the way it was in the film business. Well, you got hired because the DP or the director of photography, the cameraman, worked with you 2 years ago, and you're the only person he knows in Chicago, so he's going to call you. And but he may have asked his gaffer in California, who's a guy in Chicago that can do this commercial, and they say, well, I don't know, but you run some names by him, and he runs it by some other people, and next thing you know, you have the job.
Great. All right, let's go our final thoughts with Gary, because Gary and Nightlighters has an awesome system that they've been running for years. Can you provide any insights based off of what you guys do out there on what we talked about today and how this flow and this process, I mean, and the importance of future services, things like that?
Is that a question?
Yes.
Or is it-
I know I ramble. I like to ramble a lot.
But I don't think we have another hour to sit here, but try to summarize.
Just give us a little
something.
snippet.
Here's what I've been sitting here and I've been listening. There were many valid points brought up. And, I think basically out of lack of there being any organization aspects of what we all do that we could work together on, we come up with our own way of doing it. And then that becomes a shoe that you're comfortable with and you just stick with it. I guess the biggest obstacle I had when I started my business was finding software, an application or anything that I could use to help me be more efficient, more on top of things, keep better records, make a better presentation, have a more professional image. And more than anything else was what can I do to set myself apart? Because I wasn't trying to set myself apart from people like me or like I wanted to be. I was just trying to make it easy for people to separate me from irrigation people, landscapers that everybody is, oh yeah, we do that, we do this, we do that. Well, we give free estimates, and that wasn't what I wanted to compete with. So I just wanted to be better at what we're doing. And I guess to make a longer story short, we created with me and one of my sons, who's a computer programmer, writer, and me, who had a business, who I knew what I wanted, but I couldn't find it, maybe after I got 4 or 5 different applications and that weren't really designed for me, but they were designed for this one, for this one, this one, for this one. So I'll use this one and a piece of this one, try to put it together. I wanted something just for me. So we created a piece of software that is a massive piece of software today. It's a huge database, and it provides me with anything and everything I want to know about my business at just a punch of a key. And I guess the main thing is that with that and QuickBooks Online, I don't have any other applications or anything else that I need to run my business and do everything. This includes designing, this includes as-bills, logging things in, filling all these forms out, the design, the consultations that we do, the proposals that we create, the paperwork, the architectural drawings that we present with our plans. And then I guess the biggest and one of the most important things that we do that I think is important is we take care of our customers. And in the process of doing that, we picked up a lot of people that weren't our customers because they couldn't find somebody that would take care of them, that had any desire to take care of them, or even knew what to do to solve their problem or take care of them. But, you know, I'm not out to solve the problems of the world. I was out to solve my problems. And right now, I think we have a pretty good operation and a pretty good system. And as Mark knows a lot about Nightlighters and a lot about me, he pretty much knows what we do. He could probably tell you better than I can, maybe in shorter and fewer words. So if you have any questions, if you have a question, I'll answer it, but I could sit here and talk for a long time. Olin has spent some time with us, so he knows a lot about our business that he gained, what, in 3 days? Olin, was it 3 days you were there?
3 or 4, yes, sir.
3 or 4,
Yeah, it was a very short period, but it was a lot of information.
Yeah. So you did a lot of messing around and a lot of partying while you were there, right?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah. We don't have time for that.
And there wasn't.
And Olin wasn't there for that. But you know, we really enjoyed having him because he wanted to learn, and he came to us as, you know, I'm here to learn. I'm not here as somebody who knows everything. And I am very interested in what you do and how you do and seeing what you do and experiencing it. And in that period of time, that's what we gave him. And you would just have to ask him if it's been of any value to him. But, you know, we love sharing what we're doing. It's not a big secret, and we're happy to share it. But that's only if you want to know.
Yeah.
That's it.
I think the point here is, as you can see, you know, being designers, and if you're doing this as a full-time career and you're wanting to advance yourself, your company, you should have systems in place. So the design process is a system in a sense for designers, that this flow. How do we get there? How are we efficient and effective at what we do without having problems? And the same thing goes with after the fact, the future services. That's another system. You know, all these systems, and this is the beauty of what Gary's got going on with his company, is they've got this now system in place that manages everything, all aspects from design, installation, maintenance, management, whatever it is, finance, it's all packaged into one. That's the beauty of his deal. So I think for us as a takeaway, build these systems, have something in place that's going to make you more efficient, more profitable. Boom.
It's super nice, Mark. If you can go back, I know you've been doing it longer than I have full time, but if you can go back even 6 years,
Yeah.
and a client calls you and you can pull out that drawing, even if it's a hand sketch, looks like a third grader drew it up, but you can go find out where that wire run is and solve their problem and spend 15 minutes on their property. It's well worth having any kind of information about how you laid out that system.
For sure. Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
That's what's great about what Gary mentioned, and he didn't go too far into it. And I recently threw the information out on Facebook, but they have a CRM program that's proprietary for the landscape lighting industry, and it is a very
There's nothing like,
proprietary.
yeah.
The systems and processes are literally documented flawlessly.
Very cool. All right, guys, any other final questions, or we're gonna go ahead and wrap up? All good?
Nope.
All right,
think we're
well,
good.
thank you, Chris.
Thank
Great
you.
job on leading us through this,
Yeah,
and
thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
we
Thank you,
look
Chris.
forward to
Appreciate
the
it.
next one. So I'll send off the information, like the packet, like a study guide that will have some of this information in there for you. And then that way you won't have to sit here and try and take notes so much. So thank you.